Let's take a quick preview of bearing walls in lava. So if I zoom in on this model, you'll see that we have bearing walls listed here, all the way over here. I'm going to turn them yellow by highlighting them. And bearing walls are going to be carrying the gravity loads down the building. So I can double click on a bearing wall, and I can see some information about the length of that wall, the weight of that wall. So the self weight, it's considered an exterior wall right here. So it's picking up its self weight right there of 17 pounds per square foot. That comes straight from our load assembly. So in this model, the exterior wall has been defined right here as 17 pounds per square foot. The program also detects that it's got a wall location of 4 to 5 region zone. That's for wind components and cladding. So the building right here, it's going on along the entire exterior, and it's breaking it as a 4 or 5 zone there. So I'm going to jump over to the sizing tab. And in here, we can see that the program is going to be sizing a 2x4 type stud. So a 3.5 inch stud depth. We can change the depth right there. It's going to be stud spacing of 16 inches, and then it's going to find a list of any of the 4x that will fit that. So you'll see that list right there. It also considers the height. That's the unbraced length height, and we can see if we go down, the program is checking the stud. It worked in this model, and then it tells whether it was the axial stress that checks right here. So we find that. We find the sill plate bearing stress check, and we also see gravity loads and then with the lateral loads. This is the components and cladding loading, and we're seeing that we are applying that for deflection right here. So we're checking the deflection of that based on, here's our components and cladding load. So we can see all of those calculations, negative pressures right here and positive pressures down here. So you see all of the wind loading as well as the axial load on that stud, and then it gives us a design of a 2x4. In lava, we are going to assume that we're not going to print every single bearing wall into the model for the report. If you want this to show up in your report, you just want to click on Print in Report. That will allow the program to know that. And then you also just want to make sure you go to your Preferences, and under Building Layout, there is a Bearing Wall tab, and you want to make sure you're going to allow the program to print bearing walls in the report. While we're here, you'll see that some of these settings are set right here. So when you first start drawing your model, you'll notice that we have some base level settings for defaults. So we're using the lumber type material, and number 2, stud depth is going to be 3.5, and it's going to be 1 stud count at 16 inches on center. If you wanted to adjust this, you can, and that would allow you to draw new walls with a different set of depth, for example. If we wanted a 2x6 wall, it would check that. But you can also just check it directly right on the wall itself. So you can adjust it right on the wall. You don't have to go into the preferences to set it. Once you've got that all set, you can check the report, and you'll be able to run this report and see it designed. We can jump straight to the bearing wall calcs by going here, and we're seeing that same bearing wall listed right here with the loading that was applied to that bearing wall. This shows us the design pressure for the wind, and then we get results showing us what the maximum axial loads as well as the lateral loads on top of that with the load combinations. And then lastly, tells us what was designed for this. So a 2x4, number 2 stud at 16 inches on center. Thanks for watching the video, and check out more on lavabuild.com.